In 1948, Germany was not a country. It was a graveyard. Cities flattened, factories destroyed, 12 million refugees with nowhere to go, and a currency so worthless, people were using cigarettes as money. Every expert, every economist, every Allied commander agreed. Germany would need decades to recover, maybe longer. Then one man, a cigar-smoking economics professor with no formal political experience, made a decision so radical, so controversial, that his own colleagues told him he had lost his mind. He didn't ask permission. He didn't wait for a committee. On a Sunday morning, while the Allied authorities were off duty, he went on the radio and announced, "Price controls, abolished, effective immediately." The Allies were furious. The public was terrified. The economists predicted catastrophe. Within months, store shelves that had been empty for years were full. Within 3 years, Germany had the fastest growing economy in Europe. Within 15 years, West Germany was an economic powerhouse, stronger than Britain, stronger than France. History calls it the Wirtschaftswunder, the economic miracle. And it was built by one man almost no one talks about. This is the story of Ludwig Erhard. The year is 1945. The war is over. But for the German people, the suffering has not ended. What the Allies called 0 hour, the Germans called Stunde Null, the moment everything reset to nothing. Hamburg, Dresden, Cologne, reduced to rubble. Berlin, the former capital of a 1,000-year empire, looked like the surface of the moon. Industrial output had collapsed to a fraction of pre-war levels. Agricultural production was destroyed. The transport network, gone. But the deepest wound was invisible. It was the currency. The Reichsmark, the German currency, was dead. Not technically. Officially, it still existed. But nobody trusted it. Nobody wanted it. Instead, Germans traded in cigarettes, coffee, nylon stockings. A black market economy had replaced the real one. Barter had replaced money. In this world, a professor named Ludwig Erhard was sitting in Munich, thinking, not about survival, about transformation. Ludwig Erhard was not a general, not a politician, not a war hero. He was an economist, born in 1897 in Bavaria, a man who spent his career studying markets, reading Keynes, reading Hayek, and forming his own conclusions. During the Nazi years, Erhard had refused to join the party. He quietly wrote economic papers, kept his head down, and waited. He believed in something deeply unfashionable at the time, the free market. Not because of ideology, but because he had studied history. He had seen what price controls, rationing, and central planning did to economies. They created shortages, black markets, corruption. Erhard believed the only way to rebuild Germany was to set it free, remove the controls, trust the market, let prices find their natural level, let competition drive production. Most economists of the era disagreed. After the chaos of the Great Depression, government intervention was considered the responsible position, the safe position. Erhard thought they were wrong. In June 1948, the Western Allies made a critical decision. Germany needed a new currency. The Reichsmark was replaced by the Deutsche Mark. 60 Reichsmarks could be exchanged for 1 Deutsche Mark. Savings were wiped out. Debts were reset. It was brutal, but necessary. Erhard, now serving as Director of Economics for the Western Zones, saw this as his moment. On Sunday, June 20th, 1948, the same day the Deutsche Mark was introduced, Erhard went on the radio, and he abolished price controls, unilaterally, without asking the Allies. The next morning, General Lucius Clay, the American commander, called him in. "Herr Erhard," he said, "my advisors tell me you have made a terrible mistake." Erhard looked at him and replied, "General, pay no attention to them. My advisors tell me the same thing." What happened next shocked everyone. Within weeks of the currency reform and the abolition of price controls, something extraordinary happened. Shops that had been empty for years filled overnight. Farmers who had been hoarding produce suddenly had a reason to sell. Manufacturers who had been sitting on stockpiles started moving goods. The black market collapsed because the real market was finally allowed to work. People called it a miracle. Erhard called it logic. It was not a miracle, he later said. It was the result of the honest efforts of a whole people who were given the opportunity to work hard. The economy grew by 25% in the first year alone. Industrial production doubled, then doubled again. West Germany's recovery was so fast, so dramatic, that economists around the world struggled to explain it. Some called it luck. Some called it American Marshall Plan money. Both played a role. But the Marshall Plan aid went to many countries: Britain, France, Italy. None of them recovered as fast as West Germany. The difference was policy. The difference was Erhard. Erhard was not a pure libertarian. He understood that a free market without guardrails creates winners and losers, and the losers, if desperate enough, turn to dangerous politics. Germany had already learned that lesson. So Erhard created something new. He called it the soziale Marktwirtschaft, the social market economy. Free markets, real competition, no price fixing, but combined with strong anti-monopoly laws, a social safety net, and protections for workers. The idea was radical in its balance. Let the market create wealth, then use that wealth to protect the vulnerable. It became the model, not just for West Germany, but for the entire post-war Western economic order. By the mid-1950s, West German workers had full employment. Real wages were rising every year. The average family was buying things they had never owned before: refrigerators, televisions, cars. The Volkswagen Beetle, designed under Hitler, became the symbol of a new, peaceful, prosperous Germany. Millions sold, worldwide. A country that 6 years earlier had been rubble was now exporting goods across the globe. In 1963, Ludwig Erhard became Chancellor of West Germany, the second man to hold that office after Konrad Adenauer. He had taken a broken, humiliated, starving nation and turned it into the engine of European prosperity. But here is what makes his story truly remarkable, and why it matters today. Erhard did it without natural resources. Germany has no oil, no vast mineral wealth. What Germany had was institutions, a currency people trusted, a legal system that enforced contracts, a market where competition was real, and a population that believed, for the first time in a long time, that working hard would actually be rewarded. That belief, that trust, is what built the miracle. Not government spending alone, not ideology alone, but a system designed to make human effort matter. Ludwig Erhard died in 1977. Today his face is on a German postage stamp. There is a foundation in his name. But outside of Germany, almost nobody knows who he is. That's the strange thing about economic history. The generals get the statues, the politicians get the monuments, but the people who actually rebuild the world, the ones who make the quiet, difficult decisions that determine whether millions of people eat or starve, whether a nation rises or collapses, they get a postage stamp, maybe. Erhard's story is not just about Germany. It's a case study in how economies actually recover. Not through slogans, not through blame, but through clear thinking, political courage, and the willingness to trust people with their own economic freedom. The Wirtschaftswunder didn't happen by accident. It happened because one man, on one Sunday morning, decided to act, and changed everything.